So hello everybody, it is Friday and it's time for another DAX Fridays. So we go through a DAX function every Friday, except this Friday. This Friday we're going to do something useful either way, so don't worry. We're going to talk about implicit and explicit measures. What is that? And what should you do with them? What is the best practice? So first of all, what is an implicit and explicit measure? If we start with implicit. So when you import the data, tables, columns into Power BI, it will come in a form of, if it is text, you will see that it doesn't have the sigma sign in front of it. And if it is a number, you have the possibility to do some calculations with it. You can sum, you can, by default, it will always sum. That's why it has the little symbol on the front. So if we go up here, I have just this Power BI file. This is a Northwind dataset, completely free. Link below if you want to get it. So this particular model, it doesn't have a column for sales. It has a unit price, quantity, and discount. And I have created a calculated column. You should do a measure, but just for the purpose of this exercise, I've calculated. I did a calculated column to calculate the total sales. So it's unit price times quantity. And it shows up also total sales as an implicit measure. Okay, so an explicit measure is when you get the implicit measure and you wrap it up and create a measure out of it. Let me show you. So here we have total sales. And now we're going to calculate. I already have a sales measure that is calculated without doing a calculated column. So I'm going to do a new measure. I'm going to say explicit measure. And then we're going to do the sum of total sales. What's called total sales? Yeah, total sales. So that's our explicit measure. Now, look at this. If I put our explicit measure of total sales and our implicit measure of total sales, they both give me the same results. It is the same formula, right? It's just that in one, I explicitly said, sum. That's why it's called explicit measure, because I explicitly said I want to sum. The other one, it just does it by default. And if I put date on it, on either one of those, it was going to give me the same results. It will always give me the same results. And now you're wondering, aha, so why bother? Why are you doing this? And believe me, this is something that you should do. So here's the thing, this is why. Imagine that your measure breaks. Your column changes, the column name changes for whatever reason. The beauty about explicit measures is you can reuse them everywhere, but you have wrapped the syntax into one measure instead of many. Let me show you what I mean. Hopefully you will understand me better. For example, year to date uses the measure called sales, which is the measure that calculates the total sales the correct way. Otherwise, he will use my new total sales. So this one uses sales. We have year over year uses sales also. We have rolling 12 uses sales. So most of the time intelligence calculations that I have in this model use the measure sales. So what happens if these total sales will suddenly change name to, I don't know, antal försäljningar, I don't know, another language or whatever. So then all your measures will break, all of them. You might say, oh, DAX knows that it has to change everywhere. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. So if you change the name in there, it will break all of your measures. But if you have wrapped the measure into another measure, if you explicitly wrap it, like in here, you only change it once and then it will work everywhere, because you are calling this name, not that name. So you are protecting yourself against you are foolproofing yourself, which has happened, I promise you. And you have no idea how nice it is to be able to. And then here's the thing. You're probably going to start creating measures and you say, oh, discount, I'm just going to use it here, so I will use the implicit measure. Believe me, sooner or later, that discount thing is going to have to show up in this and that one. And suddenly, changes names and everything breaks. So have the habit to change all your implicit measures to explicit. It will make your life easier, I promise you. And yes, it is a lot of work initially, but it is worth it. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, what was it? I just lost the names. When you're doing this implicit, explicit thing, one thing that you're going to realize is that when you're importing the columns from certain sources where they have already cleaned the data, and the column names has the names that you want for your explicit measure, you will see that you're not allowed to have an implicit measure with the same name as an explicit measure. So for example, I have already, before I created total sales, I have this sales measure, and of course I cannot call this column sales. It doesn't allow me to do it. It says it already exists in the model, find another name. So when you are cleaning the data, you should start thinking about, okay, what columns I am going to do calculations on, and give them names that you can then change when you are creating your explicit measures. Because otherwise you will find all kinds of crazy names. You'll find like total sales dot. You can find like, I've seen it all. I've seen it all. So it is actually much better and easier to change the names for the implicit measure so your explicit measure gets the correct name. So that is my tip for you, my second tip. So tip number 1, explicit measures always. Tip number 2, change the name. If the name that you want is already taken by the implicit measure, go to Power Query and change it so you get it on the explicit measure. Okay? If you do that too late, then you will have the reverse problem that you have sales dot in here and it's propagated everywhere, and then you decide, oh, I need to change it because, my report users are complaining, and then you have to change it everywhere. So save yourself some trouble by doing that. Okay, so this is the video for the day, tip for the day. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you again on Monday. So until then, bye bye.